Hi guys, and welcome to Thankful Thursdays with me, Kel, as usual. So it's actually the light starting to go, so I'm hoping that I can get this video before the dark makes it go all grainy. We'll see how that goes. This week we are looking at a topic that was created again from a viewer's suggestion, and the viewer asked for us to look at the term helpful support and what we thought was intended by that. And I thought this was quite an interesting thing to talk about because it's quite subjective. We'll each have our own understanding of what we think the question is asking and our own understanding of what we think is helpful support. So we're all going to be looking at that topic this week, obviously, as you'll probably already know because it's Thursday. So I'm going to get started, and I was kind of thinking to myself, where do I start with a question like this? And I think, without wanting to sound negative, the easiest place for me to start is in explaining what I think is unhelpful. And the one thing that I think is most unhelpful that people do when trying to support somebody with an eating disorder or in recovery from their eating disorder is putting the focus on weight and on food. Now, of course, to most people this is what eating disorders are about, because they see the behaviour of not eating or eating too much or purging or whatever it might be, and they see the physical effect in terms of the body and make an assumption that that's what the eating disorder is about. And that assumption is really misguided in the sense that if you really ask somebody with an eating disorder what their eating disorder is about, most people, if they're being entirely honest and not giving you the superficial answer of I feel fat, which many of us all do in avoidance of dealing with real emotions, you'd get a different answer from most of us because our eating disorder is as individual as we are. So I think something for me that is really, really important in supporting somebody, in being a helpful support to somebody, is that you don't focus on the weight and the food, which might sound like an odd thing, I don't know. But I know when I started having my most recent spell of therapy, the person I was seeing immediately, stopped talking about weight and food, which was my general experience of treatment, and I instantly found that so relieving. I'd spent the last 4 years in my head with this eating disorder, obsessed about weight and obsessed about food, and where I'd got stuck was that because I was so obsessed about that and the people in treatment were so obsessed about that, which I do understand in a sense because obviously there is the physical danger in terms of the person's nutrition and things like that, but I'd spent all that time kind of stuck in that bubble that I'd almost forgot myself what my eating disorder was really about. And it's in exploring what your eating disorder is really about that you're really going to deal with it, because if you just gain the weight back and start eating normally, then you're really only doing something with the symptoms, and the problem is still there, and it is a mental health illness, it isn't a physical illness, and I think that sometimes gets lost. So, like I said, what I think is really important in being a helpful support to somebody is that you take the focus off the weight and the food, and perhaps focus more on feelings, asking the person how they feel, and giving the person space to express their feelings. I think that expressing feelings was something very central to my eating disorder, in the sense that in society today it's not that widely accepted to be an emotional person, which I actually am now that I'm recovered, and probably was before my eating disorder as well. But because it's not accepted to express emotion, I was suppressing it all and pushing it down inside me, and that was a big contributing factor to my eating disorder, was that I was keeping that in me, and my eating disorder in a sense was a physical manifestation of my emotions. So as I started expressing my emotions and being allowed to cry by people, and being allowed to say, look, I'm having a really awful day, being able to be angry and sad and anxious, as I was allowed to express those feelings, I didn't need to express them so much through my food and through my body. So I think really allowing for that expression is really the most helpful thing that you can do for somebody with an eating disorder. And I absolutely appreciate appreciate that that's really hard for the person on the receiving end, because it at times can perhaps feel aimed at you. I know I definitely cried and screamed a lot, and my partner got kind of the short end of that stick, and it was probably really difficult for him. In fact, I know it was really difficult for him because we've talked about it since I've been well. But I think if you can allow the person that, then they will eventually process the old emotions that are under eating disorder, and then find themselves in a place where those emotions perhaps aren't as strong as they used to be, and they can express them in a more acceptable way, in the sense that they might not scream and shout. I still certainly cry and I still certainly get angry, but it doesn't build up and up and up over time, so I'm able to express it without it being a huge explosion of feelings. So I think, like I keep saying, giving somebody the space and allowing them to be able to express those feelings is the best gift that you can give to somebody. And just letting them know that that's okay, and that it's safe to express that with you, and that you're not judging them as too sensitive if they're tearful, or you're not judging them perhaps feeling fearful of them because they express anger. I think a lot of people associate anger with violence basically, and therefore we don't express our anger, or that was kind of some of my experience anyway. So I think being able to express those, and also on the flip side of that, you expressing your emotions kind of reinforces that the person suffering with eating disorder is okay to express theirs, and that it is okay to share emotions. So I think that's to me, that's my phone, that's the most important thing to me. And in terms of you doing something that shows the eating disordered person that it's okay in that sense of expressing emotions, I think what's also really important is that you show the person with the eating disorder the things that are enjoyable in life as well. I know that might sound really odd, but when you have an eating disorder, and especially as that often comes with anxiety and depression, lots of your life revolves around your eating disorder, and other people's lives revolve around your eating disorder as well. And for some time I really did live in this bubble of eating disorder, and as I started to recover and my partner started to do more normal things with me, for example we went away for a weekend as I was starting to recover, and just doing those normal things and enjoying life made it worth the effort of wanting to recover, the effort of recovering. So I think showing them that that there is good in life is really helpful, because it gives you a light at the end of the tunnel, I suppose, because if you live in this bubble of depression it feels quite impossible and like that's never ending. And I think that something else that is also important on the part of the person who is caring, shall we say, for the person with an eating disorder is getting support for yourself as well if you need it. I think that shows that becomes a good role model for the sufferer, in the sense that I felt like I was in all this treatment and I was taking such a focus away from other people, and everything was about me, and that's quite an unhealthy perspective to have on the world. And so when my partner got some support as well, that kind of reinforced that the need for that, and that was okay, and the idea of self-care as well. So I think perhaps my perception of what helpful support is perhaps, well, it's definitely not feeding the person, it's definitely not all this focus on the eating disorder, and it's the much wider idea of expressing emotions and taking care of oneself, and in a way projecting that onto the person with the eating disorder, so that they can see that that's a good way to be, I suppose. So I'm going to leave that there, because I don't want to kind of pile too much into this video, but I would be interested in some feedback on other people's perceptions of that, because I know that a lot of people might think that helpful support is perhaps something much more practical than what I'm suggesting. So I hope that you're all doing great, and I'll see you soon, guys. Take care. Bye.